Hey guys, welcome to this quick tutorial on how to use an Xbox controller with your VR headset. In this tutorial I'm going to be using the HTC Vive. However, the same exact concepts will be true except for a few things that you'll just have to change out, which I'll explain when we get to. But yeah, you can follow this if you have an Oculus or if you have a HTC Vive. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is launch Stingray. All right, so let's go ahead and launch Stingray and get started. So once Stingray starts, what we're going to want to do is use one of the templates. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the template, and I'm going to use the HTC Vive, but again, if you were using the Oculus, you're going to want to grab the Oculus because it won't have the right flow nodes. Okay, so I'm going to grab the HTC Vive because that's the setup that I have, and I'm going to go create. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this on my desktop, so I'm going to call this HTC Vive using Xbox controls, okay? And I'm just gonna go ahead and grab my directory, and I'm gonna put it on my desktop because I don't want to keep this necessarily, so I'm gonna go new, folder, and I'm gonna call this HTC with Xbox, okay? And I'm going to select that folder, and I'm going to go create. And that'll go ahead and create my project and launch me into the project. Okay, so by default, it goes ahead and launches the standard level. We don't want to necessarily use that, so let's go ahead and do some basics just to get rid of that stuff, so we're not launching directly into it, because we're going to want to do this in our own little project here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into our script folder, and into our Lua, and go into our project, and let's rename the primary level. Instead of loading VR learning, we're going to go ahead and call this HTC underscore Vive Xbox. Okay, and I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, so now I've got it looking for the correct default level, and I just have to create that level now. So I'm going to go File, New Level, and I'm going to go File, Save Level As, and I'm just going to name it the same as what I just called it. Actually, I made a mistake in the spelling, so I'm going to change that to Vive instead of Viv, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Save. Okay, and I'm just going to make that correction here as well, so that this is looking in the correct directory also, and I'm going to hit Save. Okay, so that part's done. Now we just want to have it default to this. Okay, so we're just going to go File, Project Settings, and I have this kind of squished, so I'm just going to fix that really quick. And right here it's saying that it wants to load the default template of basic, and the default startup level here is VR learning. So what I want to do is I want to change that to, and we'll just grab it from here. So we want HTC Vive Xbox, okay? And that'll change it to the correct location. All right, so now that that part's done, we're pretty much ready to go. Now, to begin, what we're going to want to do is just kind of understand what we're doing here. So the idea is that we're going to be able to move the HTC Vive position based off of an Xbox controller's input. So we can kind of move forward and move backwards and kind of control it in that regard. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is just put some stuff in our level so that we can test and see that we're actually moving around. So let's go into the asset browser again. Let's go to Content, Models, and we're just going to grab some of the stuff from the existing scene that happens to already be here. But you can use any models you want or any level pieces that you want if you have stuff imported already. All right, so I'm just going to go Props, and I'm going to grab the floor. I think there's a floor asset in here somewhere. Room, and all right, VR template room, and let's just go ahead and place that in our scene. So now we have something to walk around within. Okay, so there we have it, and there we have a basic room that we can use, and we can kind of see if we move with the controller if it's actually functioning. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and save that level, and I'm just going to turn off the grid because it kind of is disturbing. All right, so there we have it. So everything is now pretty much set for us to begin our tests, okay? So in level flow, what we want to do is start, building out the functionality, okay? So the first thing we're going to need is an Xbox input, okay? So we're going to go right click, and we're going to go input, and we're going to go Xbox thumbstick, okay? So let's grab our Xbox thumbstick, and now we want to tell it which thumbstick we're going to use. For this case, we're going to use the left thumbstick, okay? So just click on that button and select the left side, all right? And now all we have to do is just choose the axis, okay? So here's our axis, and we want to break these axis values into components, okay? Because we don't really need, the X, Y, and Z, as this is a vector. We only need the X and the Y, and we want to use those individually, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go math, vector, and we're going to go vector components, okay? And that'll allow us to break apart these components into two separate, now we can just get the X value from the output, okay? So we're going to go axis, and now we've got our X chain coming off of here. Now we know that we want to move forward and backwards, and we also want to move left and right, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do another one of those. So we could just find it again, but it's easier to just copy and paste it. So Control C, Control V, and let's go here. So on this top one, we're going to be working with the X value, and on the bottom one, we're going to be working with the Y value, okay? So this is going to be our strafe function, and this is going to be our move forward and backwards function, all right? So now what we want to do is simply reverse these values, because they're going to be backwards, and I only know that because I've done it before. If you hadn't, you would have realized that moving forward is going to move you backwards, moving backwards is going to move you forward, and it's going to be a little wonky. So we want to reverse those values. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go math, and we're going to go numeric, and we're going to multiply, okay? So we're going to multiply that value, and we're going to multiply it by a -1, okay? And that will do the job of reversing the values, okay? So, and if it's -1 times -1, it's going to be 1. If it's 1 times -1, it's going to be -1, okay? So that effectively reverses our value, okay? And we're going to want to do that on both sides of the equation, okay? So we're going to do that on the bottom as well. So from here, we're going to go Y, and we're going to reverse that value also. All right, so now we've got our values reversed. So now what we want to do is basically ensure our range, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to normalize these values, okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to go, now this part is probably not necessary, but it's really nice to do because it just ensures that our values are always going to be from 0 to 1. We're not going to get any weird values of like 100 or 10,000 or anything like that could possibly come from our control stick. So this is just a normalization, and it's really just there to ensure that our values are within nominal range, okay? So let's just go ahead and go math, numeric, and we want normalize, okay? So normalize to range, okay? And our range is going to be from 0, and our max is going to be 1, okay? So that says whatever the inputs are, we want to normalize them from 0 to 1. We don't want them to go above or below 1. Above 1 or below 0, so it'll always keep it within that range. And again, we're going to want to do that on both sides. We're going to want to do that on the X and on the Y. So let's go ahead and connect that. So now we've got normalized to range that is working on both sides. And all of our values are going to be between the values of 0 and 1. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is introduce our movement speed. Okay, so we haven't even created that variable yet, but we're going to want a variable here that is going to allow us to have a move speed multiplier so that we can adjust the speed that, so this is giving us a range from 0 to 1, but what if we want to move faster or slower than what this range will allow? So we need to have a multiplier that's going to be used to increase or decrease that value. In our case, we're probably going to be decreasing that value. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a variable. So we're going to go numeric and set numeric variable. And that numeric variable is going to be set right here. So we're going to go event on level loaded, And we're just going to set this variable as soon as the level loads so that we always have a way to easily control this variable. All right, and we're going to set it to something like 0.001. Okay, and we're going to name it move speed. Okay, so now we have a move speed variable that we can use. And we're going to want to get that variable here. So we're going to go variable, and we're going to go get numeric variable. Okay, so here's our get numeric variable. And we're just going to name this the same as what this is up here. So it's going to be move speed again. And now we have a move speed being able to be grabbed from here now. Okay, so whatever this variable is what we can grab from here. And what's nice about this is later on, if we want to change this dynamically, like when you have running capability, let's say, we can adjust this numeric variable if we want to make it, increase speed during gameplay, right? So that's why we want to use a variable here and not just, put a data. We could go math data. I'm sorry, it's under data and numeric data, right? We could just pipe this in, but then we have no way of adjusting it over time. We want to be able to adjust this, possibly in our game. So I'm leaving it like this so that we have that ability to be able to control that, in game. So like if you hit the X button, we can multiply that times 2, and now whatever your speed is now double as fast, right? So it'll be really beneficial to have it as a variable. Okay, but nonetheless, let's just keep moving. So we have our move speed, but now we have to actually, apply it to this normalized range. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go math, numeric, and we're going to go multiply. Okay, and now we can take, this move speed and multiply it by our move speed. Okay, so there we have our move speed, and we're going to go math, numeric, multiply. Could have just copied it. I should have just copied it. And I'm just going to pipe it in here. And because multiplication doesn't matter, I'm just going to keep this nice and clean by having, this go to the A and this go to the B. It doesn't really make a difference since it's a multiplication. They'll always work, no matter which, A or B I plug into. So yeah, on top it's A to B, and on bottom it's B to A, right? But again, the output is going to be the same, so it doesn't really make a difference. Okay, so now what we want to do is actually get the current position of our VR headset. Okay, so here's where it's going to vary a little bit if you have an Oculus. In the Steam, I would go into the Steam VR, and I want to do get tracking space. Okay, so get tracking space. Okay, so this is going to give us the ability to get the position of our tracking space. Okay, so in the Oculus, it would be the same exact node. It would just be under the Oculus dropdown. So here we have Steam VR. You'd have to find the Oculus VR version and find that same thing, get tracking space, okay? But once you have that, it's going to be the same, okay? And it's going to give you the same kind of outputs, right? So no big deal. Now what we want to do is take this position and add it to the different positions that we have, right? So here we're moving the X value, and here we're moving the Y value. So what we want to do is, again, break out these components so that we can, work with them again. So we're going to go math, numeric, vector, and we're going to go vector components once again, okay? So here we're going to take the position and plug it into the vector, and we're going to take the X value and add it to the X value of the controller, okay? So we're going to go math, numeric, and we're going to go addition, okay? So now we're going to be adding whatever this value is to, this position on its X value, okay? So that's what we're doing here, okay? And the same thing is going to be true on the Y. So we're going to want to go math, numeric, addition, oops, not ceiling, math, numeric, addition, and we're just going to, again, this is, I can go either direction, so I'm just going to keep it nice and clean in my graph. Okay, so here's our addition, and we're going to be adding. So let's just take a quick look at what we've got going on so far, just to recap a little bit. Okay, so we've got our Xbox controller, which is going to be giving a value out. Okay, when I push the stick up, it's going to give me a certain value. When I push the stick down, it's going to give me a negative of that X value. right? So up and down is our is our Y value. So up and down is going to be over here. In fact, we can even denote that. So let's go ahead and group this, do this. Here we go, group. And we're going to call this input, right? And now we're going to go right click, group, and we're going to say strafe component. Okay, so that's the strafe component. So this is going to allow us to slide left and slide right, which is called strafing. Okay. On this one, we're going to name it group, and we're going to call this move component, or let's say forward component. Okay, so now we've got our forward component. And obviously forward could also be backwards. If it's down, it's going to go to the negative value, right? So no big deal. So here we're just going to be reversing the controls. So group, and we're going to go reverse input. Okay. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Reverse input, and put it right there. And group, and reverse input. Okay, so again, this is going to be doing the job of taking the, on this one, let's say down is going to be reversed to up, and up is going to be reversed to down. Okay, on this one, left is going to be right, and right is going to be left. Now here we're just going to be normalizing the range. I probably don't even need to group this, but I will. So we're going to call this ensure values are in range. Okay. Oh, and I didn't actually type anything. So ensure values are in range. Okay. So there we go. And I'm just going to actually make this easy on myself. I'm just going to copy that input. And I'm going to make this box a little bigger so I can see what's going on. So copy, okay, place, group, paste, okay. And now we've got our values being in range. All right, now I'm just going to do a little more cleanup here. I'm just going to move this stuff more over to the right and make sure that I can read what I've written there. Okay, so now I can see that my values are being put into range there. All right, so now we're going to take this movement speed. So we're going to go group, get the movement speed. And we're just going to open that up a touch so we can read it. And we're going to multiply that movement speed. So group, multiply move speed with normalized values. Okay, so there we go. And we want to make sure that that is also opened up so we can see what's happening there. And we're going to copy it so I don't have to write it twice. And group and paste. Okay, so there we go. So there's the movement speed being normalized and being multiplied against our variable input speed. Okay, so now here what we're doing is we're getting the tracking space. So get the current position. Of the headset. Okay, so here we're getting the movement, the actual position of our current headset. Oops, I don't want to grab that. I just want to open it up so I can see. And now I'm going to drag this out a little more. And here we're going to break it into components again. I'm not going to denote that though, because that's pretty obvious. And we're going to say add normalized and multiplied values to the current position of the headset. okay? So there we have that. And I'm sorry if I'm being a little over the top here. I just want to make sure everyone understands what's going on. Okay, so one more time, let's recap here. Okay, so we're taking the input, we're breaking the components down so that we have a strafe component and a forward component. Then we're going to reverse that input so that it's going the correct direction. Then we're going to normalize those ranges, okay, so that we have it between 0 and 1. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the movement speed and we're going to multiply that movement speed times whatever this input value is. Okay, so if this is 0.5, this is going to now be multiplied by 0.001 to give us our new value that we want to add to our current position of our tracking space. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. Nothing really super complicated here, even though it seems a bit complicated. It's actually pretty straightforward. We're just basically taking a position, adding a value to that position. All this stuff over here is just to take the input of the controller and make it something we can utilize. All right, so that's really all we're doing. We're taking the position and adding it to some value, okay? That's it, okay? And now what we want to do is we want to recombine this information back into a vector that we can utilize, okay? So we're going to go math, vector, and we want to go vector from components this time, okay? So we're going to take these variables that we've now made and we're going to put them back into something we can utilize for our new position in our tracking space, okay? So we're just taking the X value that we've changed and the Y value that we've changed, and we're merging them back together to give us a new value that we're going to be putting into our head tracking space, okay? So we're going to go now, Steam VR, and we're going to go set tracking space. So we want to go set tracking space, okay? So this one gets the tracking space. This one, this gets the tracking space, and this is going to set the tracking space, okay? So this is going to effectively move us. That's what this is going to do right here, okay? So we're going to take that vector and we're going to plug that into our new position, and we're going to set our scale to 1, 1, 1. Oops, it's not taking it automatically. 1 space, 1 space, 1. So that just ensures that our tracking space is still at 1, 1, 1. Now, the only thing we have to do now is update this every frame, okay? So we want this to happen so that when I move this stick, that it's always updating, right? So if I push up a little bit, I'm gonna be moving forward at that up speed, okay? Now to do that, we need to check this information every frame so that every frame we're adding this new value to our current tracking space, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and go event, and we're gonna go level update, okay? So level update, and plug that into here, and that is literally it, okay? So that's gonna do everything we need it to do. So we should be pretty much ready to rock and test this, okay? So let's give it a go. So let's go File, Save Level, and let's try it out and see how it works. Okay. So now that all systems are go, I want you to note that I do not have the hand controllers connected. And that is on purpose so that we can make sure that we're only taking input from the Xbox controller. Okay, so level viewport, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a test play. And here we are in VR. And by using the up stick, I am now moving, but I'm moving extremely slowly, okay? So that's obviously going to be too slow. We're going to want to correct that, but it does seem to be working correctly. It's just moving really slow. So let's go back into our level flow, and let's change this to 0.01 instead, and see how that works. So File, Save Level, Level Viewport, hit play, wait for it to launch, and that's much nicer, okay? And I've now got Very easy to use movement. And I can still look around with my headset, but I always move, you know, relative to the floor. All right, so that should be pretty much everything you need to get started. Okay, so that should get you basically going. You can obviously expand upon this. There's a lot of things you could do depending on what you want actually to come out of your results. You may want to, rotate your input when you're going ahead and looking to the right or looking to the left so that forward is always forward, but I'm not going to cover all that right now. Maybe I'll do it in a follow-up tutorial, but this is just to get you basically going with simple movement controls. I'm figuring if you're using the Xbox controller, you're mostly going to be using a seated game, so therefore you're not really going to want to have it like move to the right when you look to the right or whatever. I would assume that you just want it to strafe and move forward and back. Again, that's going to be very dependent on your specific application, but you can take this and run with it and perform a different math functions to make this kind of work the way you need it to. Hopefully this has been helpful, and thank you very much for watching.